Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Difference Maker here, continuing the talk on thalipsis. Now, what happened, I had some errors in my YouTube account, and so I had to redo some of the videos. It's something with my notes is what I'm trying to say that went wrong, and I couldn't access my YouTube account from one of my computers that I do most of these clips on. So I'm going to start back at where we stopped off at, which we were talking about what should we know about tribulation, affliction, or thalipsis. Let me just start in tribulation, or thalipsis, is a time that a person can call on God and God will answer. And if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 30 through 31, you will see this. When thou art in tribulation and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou turn to the Lord thy God and shalt be obedient unto his voice, for the Lord thy God is a merciful God, he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which he sware unto them. Here's a quote from Pastor Thomas Leake, and he's quoting from Help in the Midst of Adversity, his introduction. And it's speaking of the adversities faced by Old Testament saints. And he says, all receive God's help. Still, the trials are tough. They involve real struggle and experience of the groaning instead of joy. But God is right there, and even at the lowest point of the trial. They're saying, how long, O Lord? How long, O Lord? You must first take the step of faith and put your life on the line. God specializes in last-minute rescues. That is God's method. He is our deliverer, our savior. So in this, we must learn who God is. Now, number 2. When we're looking at thalipsis, what do we need to know about thalipsis? Although it is not well liked, the believer should persevere and glory in it. Look at Romans chapter 5 verse 3. It says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. You should glory in thalipsis. Thalipsis is something that every Christian is going to face. Everybody is going to face that pressing. Look at Romans 12, verse 12. It says, rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, devoted to prayer. So you should be rejoicing in the hope of Jesus Christ. You should be persevering in tribulation, and you should be devoted to prayer. It's in Ephesians chapter 3 verse 13 says, therefore I ask you not to lose heart at my tribulations on your behalf, for they are your glory. Sometimes the Bible leader and the Bible teacher must go through thalipsis for the glory of Christ and those whom Christ loves. Now, how many of you are going to want to suffer and go through a hard pressing for somebody else? Well, that's what the Christian does. I love this. Morris rightly notes when he says, no one likes troubles of this kind, but they may be seen as difficulties to be overcome, as ways of opening up new possibilities. One who sees them in this light glories in them. Now, here's a question for you. Why should we have a visible and pure religion through the distress of the fatherless and the widow? Well, let's first look at Matthew Henry's commentary quote on this, and he says, compassion and charity to the poor and distress from a very great and necessary part of true religion. Visiting the fatherless and the widow in their affliction. Visiting here is put for all manner of relief which we are capable of giving to others. And fatherless and widows are here particularly mentioned because they are generally the most apt to be neglected or oppressed. But by them we are to understand all who are proper objects of charity, all who are in affliction. It is very remarkable that if the sum of religion be drawn up to two articles, this one to be charitable and to relieve the afflicted. Now, so here's why we should have a visible, pure religion that is sane through the distress of the fatherless and the widows. Number one, it exhibits the glory of God in Jesus Christ. It exhibits the glory of God in Jesus Christ. Now, when Jesus was talking about how Peter would glorify himself through his thlipsis, in which he says, verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest thou whither thou wouldest not. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not. This spake he, signifying by what death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, follow me. That's John chapter 21 verses 18 through 19. And look at John chapter 9 verses 1 through 3. He says, and Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth, and this his disciples asking him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man has sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. So, we help the widow and the orphan, someone who is in need, someone who is in distress. The thlipsis is there so that you as the Christian may glorify God, glorifying Jesus Christ. Number two, why thlipsis? Why does distress? Is God pleased with that? Yes, God is pleased. It pleases God. That's number two. Look at Isaiah 53 verse 10. And number three is as to why we should, relieve the widows and orphans in their distress, is it takes us out of our comfort zone. Now, as we go into James, as we go into the examination, the test, as we're taking the test in James, if you understand who James is talking to in this particular historical context, he was talking to scattered, some of them were scattered Jewish believers, who some of them didn't really have that much, and what was happening is they were showing favoritism towards, the wealthier people that would come to their assemblies. So here James is telling them, you help those who really need the help. Now, what does a rich man need help for? So he's saying you help those who are in need. Well, what is that going to do? That's going to take them out of their comfort zone, because they're trying to please the rich. They're showing favoritism to the rich. And James is saying help those who are like you. Oh, that's a problem.